Due to the numerous reports of celebrity suicides, the importance of awareness is becoming more and more relevant.
That's right, and today we are speaking with Sydney Neal of Two Roads Wellness Clinic about the warning signs and prevention. Good morning, Sydney.
Good morning.
Thanks so much for being here this morning.
Yes. So let's talk about why is actually discussing suicide so important?
So discussing suicide is important because it is one of the leading causes of death in the United States today. It's actually 10th for reasons people are passing away. The rates of suicide, the annual rate of suicide has actually been increasing. It is up 24% in the past 15 years, and it just keeps becoming more and more relevant as the time passes.
Wow,
so,
that's a big jump.
Yes.
It is.
So what are some signs that somebody might be suicidal?
So a few of the signs include people withdrawing from how they normally act. These can be irrational behaviors. These can be total shutdown of how they normally behave. Sometimes they'll give away personal belongings. They'll, very personal items. Often they give to friends or family members. Some people talk obsessively about their own death, or they'll write about it a lot in journaling, which necessarily isn't bad, but when it becomes excessive, that means that they have potentially actions that they're thinking of performing. And so it's very important to make sure that they're not dwelling on what it would be like if they weren't here anymore. So.
Sure. And so if you do see some of those signs, what are some prevention steps you can do?
So the first step is to kind of open the door for them to be able to talk about it. So you can be as direct as asking them, hey, are you having suicidal thoughts? Or have you been, are there any actions that you're taking against yourself that could lead you to suicide? And then after you kind of get the ball moving and make sure that they know that it's okay for them to talk about it, you want to make sure that they're as safe as possible. If they have a history of self-harm, you want to remove those objects from them. You want to make sure that they are as safe as they can be, even when they're alone. And then you're going to be there for them as much as you possibly can. You're going to talk to them as often as they need it, but make sure you're taking care of yourself too.
Sure.
It can be very hard to take care of somebody else and yourself at the same time. So that's when you're going to have them reach out to a healthcare professional. This can be as basic as the suicide lifeline number, or it can be, well, after they reach out to them, you're going to want them to reach out to something a little more personal, which is like Two Roads. We do one-on-one counseling, which can really help them with those negative thoughts that they're having, those actions that they're taking, and kind of redirect them to a more positive way. And then after that, after they have their own personal person to talk to, you're still going to want to be there for them, because having somebody in the community that they know personally is very important for keeping them grounded and keeping them safe on a day-to-day basis.
That's why the key is to follow up with them.
Yes, yes, exactly. Yes.
And I have a question for you. I don't know if you know, but you said it's gone up 24% in the last, 15, 20 years? What'd you
15.
15.
Yeah.
So do you think social media has anything to do with that? Because that would be my first inclination.
There is a lot of stigma around social media that you have to put on this perfect face, that you have to be living your best life all the time. And social media has also had a tendency to glorify self-harm, depression, having mental disorders. So while we're trying to reduce the stigma around talking about suicidal thoughts or mental health issues, it's not necessarily okay to glorify those, to want to have them just because some celebrity does, or just because, your best friend does. It's very important to realize that these are very serious conditions, and they're not to be glorified, but they are to be talked about openly.
Sure.
Yeah.
And speaking of that rate, is there any research behind why it has gone up so much?
There are a lot of factors that would play in. There are a lot of environmental changes that have happened. There are a lot of social media changes that have happened. And, as far as I am able to tell, it's really just people don't know how to talk about it.
Yeah.
And so, they feel like they have no other option because the stigma around it is so bad,
Right.
in an essence.
And it's not as simple as just, are you okay?
Yeah, no, that is merely the tip of a very large iceberg. Asking them if they're okay, they may shut the door. They may say, yeah, I'm perfectly fine. But knowing those signs and being aware of what's actually happening to them is what is going to make that difference. Because if they say, yeah, they're fine, but they're still having very withdrawn attitudes, or you see evidence of self-harm, they're clearly not fine. And while it may not necessarily be your business to kind of step into their personal space, sometimes that's the difference that it makes, is taking that step further and being like, I know you're not okay, so let's make sure that you can get better.
Well, we're more prepared now, thanks to you. Thank you so much, Cindy, for being here, giving us some tips today. Very great information.
Yes.
We'll be right back, you guys.